That's working.
Okay.
So, welcome, Jill.
Hello. Good evening.
Thank you so much for doing this again. Can I ask you to start off by just telling us what it is that you do that you love?
Okay. Well, I love being a vet. I've been a vet now for a few too many years, possibly. I'm actually trying to work it out in my head. How long is it now? 18 years, so quite a long time. And I worked for a long time with vets, and I worked as a vet's nurse prior to becoming a vet. So I've been in this profession a long while, and I still love it. So that's a good thing. I have worked in general practice, I've worked in referral practice, I'm specialised in internal medicine, and now I actually work from home for a lab company that runs blood tests on animals, and we'll be getting back into clinical work in the near future as well.
So what is it about it that you love?
I think really what I like, it's puzzle solving. So I like being faced with a puzzle that I have to help work out, take clues from the owners and take clues from the pets and run some diagnostic tests and try to achieve a diagnosis and enact some treatment, and obviously if they get better, that's the big reward.
Yeah.
But it's an ongoing puzzle, it never ends, and there's always something more to be learned. So you could be 95 and you could still be learning more about this profession. It's never going to end. There's always going to be something new and something you've never seen before. So every day you do find something new. It's not boring. Some things may be a bit routine, but sometimes you're actually quite grateful for the routine because it gives you a chance to catch your breath.
Yeah.
Think about the more complicated thing.
And does it get challenging? I mean, has it been an easy ride to get to where you are? Or?
No, there have been a lot of bumps along the way, so it would be foolish to say that it's all been rosy by any means. And just even trying to get into vet school is a bit of a challenge. And one of the things I sort of talked to you about before is a lot of discouragement along the way. People will say, oh, it's so difficult. You sure you want to do that? It's going to be really sad. Do you know what you're getting yourself into? Which I found a little bit surprising, and I was just a bit blindsided and said, no, I'm going to do this, this is what I want to do. So I pursued it, and it's only sort of in retrospect I can completely understand where people come from, but I think what would have been helpful maybe is actually being shown the realities and sort of shown how you can come around them and how you can make it work for you. So it's not been easy, and what's been a struggle sometimes is finding what works for me and the family, because what I really like doing is working. I've loved when I've worked in referral institutes and when I've been in sort of the universities, but the time pressure demands are just not favourable for your family and relationships, and can be really damaging, and I found that I needed to make a change, and it was definitely worthwhile doing. And as somebody said to me, you can always come back. It's not, that avenue's never closed to you, it's just that path isn't going to be the best for you at this point in your life, which is true. And whether or not I ever do go back, I've no idea. I mean, I do like working with a lot of like-minded people, and I like some of the more challenging cases, but I also like having it mixed up with healthy cases, and I really like being in a situation where you get to know your clients and their families, and you see everybody growing up and everybody interacting, because that's what it's all about, is really how these animals fit in and slot into people's families and their lives.
Yeah.
My philosophy as well is that every pet matters. So could be the most insignificant pet. We've had somebody who wanted to export their budgie and take it with them to Japan, and was so internally grateful to Johnny that he went through all the paperwork and learned how to do it. But to this man, he spent all his time with these budgies, and that's what was important to him. So you learn not to be judgmental of people or to impose your judgments on them, because for each person, a pet may be a very, very different thing. I've had people who've come in where this is the only link with their past, or, you know, an elderly woman where the only reason she got up in the morning was to give the dog its insulin. She knew that dog relied on her. And so there are some extremely strong emotional bonds that you're dealing with, which we can help with. So it's good. You can get a bit caught up in it, but you always have to maintain your little bit of distance so that you can also be the rational mind, where it becomes quite difficult sometimes.
Yeah, and it's the other side of it, you know, hardware, the animal's too sick to do something with. Is that? I mean, I imagine that must really take its toll.
It can be, and it can be, especially when you're quite invested in it, the case yourself, or the people were, and sometimes too it's been a dog that you've seen grow up, or a cat that you've seen grow up, so you've got that little bit of emotional pool, but then you've got to get your job hat on and think, right, what is the best thing here? And the best thing is that I need to help us decide what's going to be best for, you know, Fluffy or Fido going forward. And again, those days can be really, really rough, because sometimes it can feel that you failed, you've not been able to do enough, but for the vast majority of the time, you know that you've done everything you can. You know the people have done everything they can, but there's still the outcome that is going to happen. And then the job is to make it the best possible ending for that animal's life as you can, the most comfortable for the animal and the most relaxing in a way and peaceful for its owners, because watching somebody or something die is quite stressful, but actually enabling them to do it at the right time without suffering is quite relieving for a number of people.
Yeah, and they feel good about that process, that they have facilitated that in some, like they've
right,
helped,
it's a gift at the end of the day, because what you're doing is saying, you've been such a special member of our family, we need to make this decision, and that's never easy. And if you get to a point that it is easy, sometimes you've left it a little bit too late.
Yes.
So it's a very hard decision you're making. There's a lot of guilt that comes wrapped up with that, but at the same time, it is so peaceful for the people and the pets to be able to have it be in a way planned at the right time, that they can say their goodbyes and do those things. And obviously it's not always the case, you can't always plan it, but if you can, it just helps just relieve the pain a little bit, I think, for everybody.
So I know that you so you juggle, you have 3 kids, and do this incredible work too. What kind of keeps you sane? What keeps you
sometimes nothing. I do try very, very hard to learn to say no. And I'm not good at it, but I have been trying harder to learn, because to overcommit myself will stress me. So I do know that. So the sort of external things like reviewing a paper or writing a book chapter, I have to be very selective about what I do agree to, because I enjoy doing it, but it can't be to the detriment of everything else, which includes my sanity. And then having my own pets is, absolutely essential, because just getting out and walking the dogs and chatting with a friend, or not even chatting to anybody, just walking around, can be really quite therapeutic. My favourite thing, my best course of therapy is really horseback riding, which I have to get back to, because that is, I have to say, the one thing where when I'm riding for that period of time, everything else leaves my mind. So I find that to be my best therapy.
Kind of exhilarating.
It is. And I had thought that I would maybe do equine medicine, but I hadn't been confident enough to really go down that route. And then I decided, no, actually that's my hobby, and that's what I enjoy doing as relaxation, and that's what I enjoy getting out of it. And as much as I enjoy veterinary medicine, I'll leave that species to somebody else, and that's my hobby. So
So animals have always had this theme in your life, haven't they? That's great that you followed that.
I've always wanted more and more different things, and it's quite fun, because it's nice to think about, well, could we maybe have a chameleon? Would that be really fair to the chameleon, or how would we raise it? Is that really right? But there's always different opportunities. You just have to do it correctly, otherwise it's not worth it.
So if you were to meet someone that's kind of not found their path, not found something they like, and are wanting to do more of what they like, but are struggling, from where you are, what would you say to them? What kind of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I've always found is that it's either I've ended up having to have a job that I really like, because it's so time demanding that the time for hobbies just isn't there. So trying to make, hobby fulfill that happiness need doesn't really work necessarily. And so then if you are like that, and probably the type of a bit of a workaholic like myself, then you need to really critically look at yourself and say, what aspects of anything in the world make you tick? And for me, it was science. It was sort of the puzzle solving of science. It comes back to that over and over. And I think I mentioned to you before, I had either wanted to be a pediatrician or a vet. Earlier on, there was the idea that maybe I wanted to be a forensic scientist, and perhaps if it wasn't just Quincy ME when I was little, maybe it could have been more of the CSI and those sorts of things, or there had been more sort of tools available, diagnostic tools. Maybe I would have gone that route. But I had always really wanted pets and was fascinated by animals, and I think we've got the little added puzzle in there that we don't know what's wrong with them, and they're not speaking for themselves, so we have to work it out for them. So I think it's really trying to learn about yourself. What is it that makes you tick? And if I weren't doing vet medicine, if I didn't have the pets, I probably would have more hobbies with pets, but I would still be doing something that's a puzzle-solving nature. I used to get, it was used to have a bit of a joke that would go around by some of the nurses. They'd call me MacGyver medicine. If we didn't have the right thing, Jill will come in and fix it with, a couple of little bits of something else and come with an alternate way to do it. So it would always be something along that vein. And in order to stay happy with it, though, you have to not, if you're at a point where you're trapped and something's making you unhappy in your job, you have to look at what it is and say, is this something that's always going to be present even in another job? Is it inherent to the type of work I'm doing? Or is it because of this particular job? And where I've been quite lucky is that when I've hit those barriers, it's actually been related to that particular job, something within that workplace or something associated with colleagues or perhaps the employer at the time. It wasn't actually the nature of the job itself. It just can sometimes be very scary then to step away from that or to force that change.
Yeah, that's great. I mean,
so I think that I'm quite fortunate. It's not the actual profession that can get me down. It's actually my role within the profession or my particular job at the time that can make me unhappy. And then, it's time to actually make a change. And I have I can go in multiple different directions within veterinary medicine. And I've learned that over time. And that actually is quite comforting. Yeah. Because you do then have the confidence. If you're not happy with something, there are ways to make a change. I think it's most difficult for vets in the first 5 years. And a lot of, I remember with a lot of my classmates, we would sort of, in the first 5 years, you'd have niggles and you're trying to get it sorted out and then you get to a happier place. Yeah. But it takes a bit of work.
There's something in your mindset, though, that loves the puzzle, isn't it? And I think, that's obviously going to have sustained you, because you're always figuring it out, or trying to, work out which way or what's the right thing to do.
Yeah, and which way to go. So I think that, as long as I'm doing something like that, I would find it very difficult to have a job that was predictable. Yeah. I think I would find it quite difficult because I think I would get bored. Yeah. And so I've looked and thought, well, maybe that's actually a good route to go when I have the children and it's really busy. And I'm just fortunate that actually I am still working as a vet. Yeah. Despite having the limitations of time and the time pressures and making it still happen.
Yeah. And will you do your horse riding?
I will do various reasons why that hasn't happened, but it's now
time to get back on the saddle.
Back on the saddle, that's absolutely it.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You have multiple children. Each child is different and special in their own way. Yeah. So it runs the gamut, and sometimes you will have people who will bring in we rescued our own chicken after she was attacked by a fox. That was a great where she lived. We had to keep her inside for a couple of days because then there was a snowstorm and we couldn't bear to put her back out. But she lived and then went back to laying and everything was fine and we learned a lot from her. But, to us, that was quite important for us as a family.